Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge Week 8. Wide receiver expected ranges, projections, rankings, ultimately, is the order that I will present them to you in. You can see the projections up on the screen. If you have any questions about specifics, just ask in the comments and I can explain to you. You can find this sheet to look closer at it up on the website, www.theffforge.com. There's a link down in the description. Now, these rankings may not get posted up until later on Wednesday, so give it a little bit of time, but there is links down in the description to the website. So that's where you can find the rankings all times, where they also will appear updated, and you can also see any updated things that I've done to the rankings throughout the week live with me if you wish on Thursdays and Saturday evenings. Thursdays 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time prior to kickoff, and then Saturdays 7 p.m. we're going to move that back just a half hour Eastern Standard Time. That's been going for anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours or more in terms of the length of time that stream's been going. Special announcement coming up after we get just a little bit into the rankings, but I do want to show you up on the website. If you click on this little tab, which you can see this, you will see this little tab on the website. That'll give you just a more simplified version of the rankings as well if you don't care to see all the projections and you just want to see the order that I have them in. So with that, you got a little bit of a sneak peek as to a little bit more of what you're going to see in this first tier. Let's go through the first tier. And then we'll see how I did with my loves and my fades. So my loves and my fades are just like starts and sits. My loves obviously being the starts, fades being the sits. This week, for my wide receivers, we've got A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 1, followed by Justin Jefferson at wide receiver 2, Drake London, CeeDee Lamb, Ja'Marr Chase, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm hoping we can keep Malik Nabers up here past this week. Injury to Andrew Thomas really did not help things look pretty for Daniel Jones last week, and we might be seeing a little bit more close to the New York Giants that we saw last season going forward, possibly, especially this week against Pittsburgh. That's not helpful either, so we'll see how things turn out there. I don't want to close the door on that too early here. In terms of last week for my loves and my fades, I did not do well with my wide receiver loves and fades, so we're looking to do a little bit better this week. My loves, I gave you Tank Dell, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker did finish right around that flex territory, kind of at the bottom of it, so he was probably ranked a few spots below, finished a few spots below where I had him ranked ultimately. Was hoping for more from that. For my fades, I also didn't do too hot. Gave you Tyreek Hill, which that worked out very, very well. But then I gave you Amari Cooper, George Pickens. What I will say for George Pickens, I didn't know that Russell Wilson would be the quarterback. And actually, I do think I moved him a spot or two up in my rankings after that. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not, honestly. I don't know. But Amari Cooper, I know I thought about it. Amari Cooper, I did suggest to, I think I recall 2 people asking me about Amari Cooper in terms of a start-sit type of question, and both of them I did at least recommend to start him. So, yeah, he had a bigger week than anticipated, but that's good. So, that's how we did last week. We're going to do better this week. That was quite probably the worst week of the season so far for my loves and my fades. It's been overall pretty good this year. So let's move on to this second tier of rankings. Wide receiver 9 through wide receiver, I think it's going to go past 14. Wide receiver 17 there is this second tier. It kicks off with T. Higgins, followed by Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs, Brian Thomas Jr., Jaden Reed, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams. And my first fade of the week, we do 3 fades, 3 sits for the wide receiver position, is going to be Terry McLaurin here. Now, my starts, my sits, and I have my first love of the week, Tyreek Hill. My fades, my loves are there to help guide your decision making in terms of how I'm feeling, gut feeling kind of on these players is how that goes. The ranking obviously still matters too. Also, you see over to the right, you see Minnesota, Jacksonville highlighted in green. I have the bottom 4 and the top 4 defenses highlighted. Green is going to be good for these highlights. Red is bad. Everything else, red is good, blue is bad. So hopefully that's not too confusing. The loves and the fades, green, red. Same with the rankings on the defenses here. So these are top 4, and I did cut them off at top 4 because that's where there was a drop off to the next tier of good matchups and bad matchups too. Was a bottom 4 for the matchups. So as you can see, Cooper Kupp, Jaden Reed in really, really good wide receiver matchups this week. Now, Tyreek Hill, I just wanted to kind of get the word out there, assuming that Tua Tagovailoa is back. Arizona is a top 5 wide receiver matchup, just kind of missing out on that highlighting for fantasy purposes, of course. And so for those of you who were wise enough to not start him last week, don't be too afraid by that low score that we saw last week. Once again, assuming Tua is back, let's get him back into those lineups and hopefully end up feeling really good about it going up against Arizona. So nice week to potentially get the gang back together there in Miami. A couple of players here who I am somewhat significantly higher on than the current ECR, which that will change some throughout the week as well. T. Higgins, I'm currently probably going to remain higher on than the ECR. He has been, very good this season. He's actually been out targeting Jamar Chase, which kind of gives him a little bit of a safer place so far on the season. Going up against Philadelphia, it's a really nice wide receiver matchup there. As you can see, he projects nicely here, so I feel really comfortable playing T. Higgins. Same with Garrett Wilson. I don't feel too uncomfortable playing him, and even against New England, Davante Adams is probably going to soak up the attention of the best cornerback there. So we saw last week, it's not like Aaron Rodgers was going to stop throwing the ball Garrett Wilson's way, still received 9 targets. I expect something similar to that again. And so, Davante Adams soaking up the toughest matchup yet again here, similar to how things worked out last week. Could be a similar outcome from Garrett Wilson than last week. And Brian Thomas Jr. going up against Green Bay. Green Bay is not a team that necessarily screams shut down, scared to me. About an average matchup here. So, and it's one that usually tends to excite me a little bit because Jordan Love can throw the ball, it can create turnovers. I think that they're just a team that invites kind of a shootout type of situation so far. We'll see. Maybe that defense is starting to improve, though. But I'm not going to fully believe in it yet this week, given some of the challenges that Houston had between that rough offensive line play and no Nico Collins really, I think, helped feed into Green Bay's defense having a better day. So we'll see on that one. But Brian Thomas Jr., another guy who, I'm pretty willing to put in the lineup again this week. Let's move on to my third tier, which goes from wide receiver 18 to 21. Just a small little tier here. My next 2 loves of the week in a row at wide receiver 18, we've got Darnell Mooney, followed by Jawan Jennings at wide receiver 19, Amari Cooper 20, and George Pickens 21st wide receiver this week. So Darnell Mooney is going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are one of the best wide receiver matchups. And I did see that Darnell Mooney is being started in less than 50% of leagues. So between the fact that I'm much higher on him than ECR is, ECR 29, I'm ranked 18th, and the lower start percentage, I just wanted to point out that, I want to play Darnell Mooney. In terms of targets per game, he's a top 20 guy, and he's on the cusp of being a wide receiver 2 on the season. When you combine that with this matchup, I think it would be a mistake to sit Darnell Mooney this week, in my opinion. Then Jawan Jennings, he might not play this week, so there are factors that are going to end up potentially changing this ranking as the week goes along, especially most notably if come Saturday it's still like, hey, it's a game time decision. He will not be ranked 19th come Sunday at that point in time for sure, if he's still at ranked 19th at that point in time. So this, of course, relies on the fact that if he's playing. If he's not playing, don't put him in your lineup, and he's, doesn't count against me in terms of him being a love of mine. I am going to be doing my best, however, to get him in my lineup this week. If I went out there and I got him off of the waiver wire, Dallas is an above-average wide receiver matchup, and San Francisco is kind of in must-win territory at this point in the season right now. And I don't think that they're going to come in here underestimating Dallas. Instead, I think they're going to come in here kind of maybe overestimating Dallas, and it's not going to be a trap game, and I think they're going to come out punching really, really hard against Dallas, knowing that they really can't afford to lose any more games right now, given how the conference is going and everything like that. So that's going to bring us on to my next tier of wide receivers from wide receiver 22 down to wide receiver 31. This tier kicks off with Jackson Smith-Njigba at wide receiver 22, followed by Zay Flowers, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., Xavier Worthy, Romeo Doubs, Tank Dell, and Chris Olave. So Jackson Smith Jr., see, I am quite a bit higher on him than the current ECR, and it's not necessarily an easy matchup against Buffalo. They are one of the tougher wide receiver matchups. We're not expecting DK Metcalf to be a go this week, so I took those targets and I spread them out amongst the remaining guys to some extent. And for a player who's already receiving, on average, a pretty good amount of targets in JSN, that extra target or two could go a long ways. And as you can see, I mean, he has a really, really nice floor here. And with a high floor, always comes the potential for a ceiling. And, you know, he's going to be kind of bumped up one spot higher here in terms of what he's asked to do, what he's going to be asked to bring to this offense. It can go one way or the other. You know, maybe they just get shut down by Buffalo completely. It's always possible. But I think that they'll figure things out with this offense and you know, not be complete crap against Buffalo. That's going to bring us on to Zay Flowers going up against Baltimore. The main reason that I have a fade tag on Zay Flowers here really doesn't have much to do outside of the fact that the ECR in him is currently wide receiver 12, and I just think that that's quite high. I understand Cleveland here's a good matchup, but this is a divisional game, so, you know, I kind of like to throw those types of, like, hey, this is a really good matchup or a really bad matchup out the door a little bit in divisional games, especially some divisions like the AFC North, where these teams always seem to play each other incredibly well. Zay is coming off of a game where he played, but he got injured early, and he didn't do anything from that point forward. And unfortunately, that's also not too uncommon for him, as he's been extremely boom or bust. He's either done quite a bit, never gotten 20 fantasy points in half PPR, but he's done enough to get, you know, 15 plus like 3 times, and then he's gotten less than like 4 fantasy points like the other 4 games. So been very boomer bust, and to me, that kind of boomer bust at wide receiver 12 in a divisional game here, look at how he projects, you know, the ceiling isn't quite there even. I don't quite understand that high of a ranking, and I'm willing to sit Zay over some of these guys. If you're not willing to sit him over JSN, I understand that. That's going to bring us on to my next love, my last final love of this week, Romeo Doubs going up against Jacksonville, and that has a lot to do with it. That has a lot to do. All of the Green Bay wide receivers got a little bit of a bump in general here going up against Jacksonville this week, as you can see from the highlight there. It is a top 4 wide receiver matchup via fantasy points given up on average. By the way, Deontay Johnson, Marvin Harrison Jr. going up against Miami, Deontay going up against Denver. We'll see about Patrick Surtain. I'm not sure about the likelihood of that happening. And then my fade too here, Chris Olave going up against Los Angeles Chargers, all in bottom 4 wide receiver matchups, really tough matchups. So that might help to explain some of the concern in the rankings for these guys, why I'm just a little bit lower than the ECR there, and could even push them down a little bit throughout the week. We'll see. Not like the most lovely week for wide receivers right now. I think injuries are starting to really show themselves, even with a full slate of games here. But for Romeo Doubs, this is a really, really good matchup. And I didn't write anything on this. Is this my 4th love? Did I give you 4 loves? I did. I didn't even realize that, so I didn't write any notes. But yeah, Romeo Doubs, somebody who I've been telling you is a good guy to have on the back end of your roster. This is one of those weeks where we can kind of move him up, maybe into that wide receiver 2 territory if you're in a needy situation like that. But definitely a higher end flex than a lot of weeks because of the matchup against Jacksonville. Expect a good ceiling from Romeo relative to, the ranking here. And definitely another game that he could have another big week is very possible. With that comes my actual other fade here. So I guess we're going to go with 4 loves this week. Let me write that one down. And for Chris Olave, you can see, the projections aren't fantastic. Neither are they here for Tank Dell, but Chris Olave in a much, much harder matchup. And, of course, going to have Spencer Rattler, assuming, will be his quarterback again. So right now, as of Monday, as of last report that I saw, Chris Olave is still in concussion protocol. They might just take it extra easy. They might just let him sit another week. Maybe he is taking a little extra long time to heal from this, all of that and above. So keep an eye on that if you are potentially relying on Chris Olave, but that would make, I think, life easier on all of us to not even have the option to play him this week. I think that would be great because the Los Angeles Chargers are the third worst matchup for wide receivers. This is a game that opportunities will be coming at a premium against the Chargers. I've talked about this all season with especially the running backs going to get up against them a lot of times, but also receivers. I brought this up, is that teams don't get to run a whole lot of plays against the Los Angeles Chargers. These games are slower games, and these games have fewer plays run. The Los Angeles Chargers have the fourth highest time of possession on offense in the NFL, and they're also a bottom 10 team in plays run per game. They take their times, which results in the second least amount of plays run against them by opposing offenses. So, assuming that we do still have Spencer Rattler in that quarterback here and that Chris Olave does play, we should feel comfortable not forcing Chris Olave into our lineups. But at a certain point, you can always take a shot on him too. I don't know that, given what we saw early on in the season, Spencer Rattler in that quarterback is going to be a whole lot different than what we were getting from Derek Carr early season. I do think, long term, that's a different story. But let's get on to this next tier of wide receivers, wide receiver 32 through 39. We've got Wan'Dale Robinson, Tyler Lockett, Ladd McConkey, Michael Pittman Jr., Jalen Tolbert, right? Jordan Addison, Keenan Allen, Cortland Sutton from wide receiver 32 through 39. And at wide receiver 33, I have Tyler Lockett, as you can see, significantly higher on him than the experts are. The projections are nice. This is, once again, one of the teams that got a little bit of a boost in the projection due to DK Metcalf not playing this week. It is a tougher matchup. Maybe I shouldn't have given him a boost this week, but those targets got to go somewhere, unless, of course, this offense is running fewer plays than, I didn't one for one those targets elsewhere, but I did give a little bit of help to guys like Tyler Lockett, and so once again, him moving into this, essentially the leading wide receiver role. There is an opportunity against Buffalo this week for Seattle, an offense that has been, pretty good for fantasy points in general. Outside of that, if you have any questions on any of these rankings, just feel free to ask them in the comments or come any of those times for start-sit questions. I meant to drop this earlier. I screwed up. We're going to do a drawing this Saturday during the video. I went over 900 subscribers, so woohoo on that. Very excited. I'm not good at faking excitement. I was very excited when I got done with my streaming on Sunday morning and had went over 900 subscribers without even quite realizing it. So we're on the climb here to 1,000 subscribers, and I want to help push that along. I want to thank you subscribers. I want to thank the new subscribers that are going to be coming in. I want to thank everybody who comes into chats and just helps fill up the time and give me work to do by offering you guys. It's going to be a $10 gift certificate. You're going to email me whoever wins it. We're going to do a drawing. I'll do some sort of hashtag throughout and keep track of it. I think is going to be my best way to do it. I don't really know any other way. So I'm going to do my best to do one and get everybody involved. And if you are a member of the channel and you come in and you do whatever I ask of you to do in order to get entered into the drawing, you'll get a second entry into that drawing. The entry, there's no need for the quotations on that. All right, that's going to bring us on to these next two tiers. We'll just cover quickly. There's another 42-ish wide receivers that I have ranked. It looks like all the way up to cell number 96 I have. This is cell 51. I have players that are ranked or unranked in some cases. So, wide receiver 40 is Calvin Ridley, followed by Cedric Tillman, Khalil Shakir, Christian Kirk, Demario Douglas, and Keon Coleman in that tier. Tier right after that, before we fall off, is going to be Rashad Bateman, Josh Downs, Jerry Jeudy, and Rome Odunze going up against Washington. Some excitement to me for that if you're having to play somebody lower in the rankings here. Jerry Jeudy, really good matchup going up against Baltimore. In terms of going up against the pass, Cedric Tillman, also same team there, of course, going up against Baltimore. Calvin Ridley, really good matchup for him going up against Detroit. Unfortunately, a little bit tougher to trust these guys, but it does help them in the rankings. In terms of guys who I am higher on than the ECR, Cedric Tillman, I have him 41st, ECR currently at 49th. Look, the projections on him were fantastic when I just did last week. I'm not expecting him to repeat 12 targets, but it was nice to see, right? And he did pretty well with those 12 targets, and he's in a really good matchup. So at a certain point, I am willing to take a risk on him, take a shot on him. Somebody who I really did like coming out a fair bit last year. I don't think he's been in the league for 2 years already. And then Khalil Shakir going up against Seattle. I have him ranked 42nd. He's 32nd in the ECR. I think the ECR is just too high on him. You can see even from the projections, he fits pretty much right in here. I might have him a little low, but 32 I think is a little too high, especially with the addition there on offense. I think that makes Khalil Shakir become quite boom or bust, and I don't know how much boom there really is with that. So unfortunately, I think we're going to start to see Khalil get ranked a little bit lower and lower each week to a certain point, maybe right around here, hopefully. Rashad Bateman, I do have a little bit higher than the ECR as well, ranked 46, ECR 54 there, going up against Cleveland. Once again, that is actually a pretty decent wide receiver matchup. You can see he's a little out of place here with the projections. He's done very, very well. So don't get too anxious in playing him for what he gets, which is like 4 targets a game or something like that. Not a whole lot. He has been extremely efficient, and like touchdowns on top of that efficiency have caused him to, way overproduce for what you would expect given the opportunity for Rashad Bateman. So expect that to come down. But with the better matchup this week and some other concerning areas, I am willing to take a shot on that continuing to some extent. And also I'm thinking Zay Jones is kind of hurt, and maybe that'll help increase, by a target, or the likelihood at least that Rashad Bateman gets those 4 targets that he's been getting typically at a minimum. So those are all the wide receivers. The running backs will come out later today, that ranking video, and then tomorrow morning, quarterbacks and tight ends, before we go live Thursday night. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate y'all, and have a good day. Peace out.